thinking back to 14 years old. It was a time in my life where I really felt like people were treating me pretty crappy. And so even at 14 years old, I knew some of the things that they were doing to me weren't fair. And a brief example is when I would come on shift, they would clear the tip jar. And man, that feeling of just not being valued at all really hit me pretty hard. But if you fast forward a couple of years, I was able to get a legal job working to CVS. He made me feel valued. He made me feel seen. He treated me not like a teenage idiot punk kid, which is what I was, but as an actual person, as an actual human being, and it really made me feel valued. So that was a big turning point in my life to kind of go, oh, I really need to decide to do something with my life and make something of myself that's beyond just, blowing off school and everything else. So yeah, that meeting him and that experience with him would be that impact.
Welcome to the Impact Effect Podcast. My name is Jim Morris, and we've got an amazing guest in the studio today. Pete Dusché is in the house. He is the owner of Hesian Leadership, and we're going to talk leadership, we're going to talk life, we're going to get into all of it today. So please help me welcome Pete to the Impact Effect Podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for having me here.
Of course, man. I'm fired up to chat, brother. It's always great when you see someone putting out information and content that resonates with you. Pete and I connected through LinkedIn. So for me, it's really cool to dive deeper and build a deeper human connection. And I really enjoyed the opportunity today to navigate a great conversation with you, brother.
Well, I appreciate you reaching out, and I probably owe you an apology for not responding to you right away. I mean, I know you had talked to me, and I'm not the best at getting back to people on LinkedIn sometimes. So here's my formal public apology to you for not getting back to you right away.
It's all good, brother. Listen, man, LinkedIn has become this thing where it's just like, can I get you 30,000 qualified leads? Right. Do you need to, spend $4 million on this new AI software? And it's like, my inbox is just boom, 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 boom. And for me, man, unfortunately, I have missed the opportunity that people have reached out to connect. So again, I'm just grateful that we're sitting here, we're doing this, and it's the start to a new relationship with you, brother.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've gotten the same thing on that. It's sometimes you're just like, what? You're selling me stuff that did you even look at my profile? I don't need what you're selling me.
The best is what it's like they're trying to sell you exactly the same thing you do.
Right.
All right, well, let's jump into the same question I ask every single guest to kick this bad boy off. What is the most impactful moment in your life that changed everything for the future?
All right, so I'm going to put marriage and birth of children to the side on this one because I think they're kind of given and kind of obvious. May I ask you real quick, how much time can I spend on this question?
As long as you want to dive into it,
All
baby.
Right. So, I'm thinking back to 14 years old. It was a time in my life where I really felt like people were treating me pretty crappy. In reflection, I'll say that, no, in certain regards, a lot of people were being really nice to me. But at the time, I felt like crap, all right? I lived with my aunt. She was charging me $50 a week for rent. And if you know 14-year-old working laws, you're not allowed to make money at that age, at least not legally. So I had to get a job working at a car wash. And that car wash was actually run and owned by a police officer, oddly enough, right? So he paid me cash and it was all under the table. But even at that job, they kind of treated me like crap. And so even at 14 years old, I knew some of the things that they were doing to me weren't fair. And a brief example is when I would come on shift, they would clear the tip jar. So it'd start with fresh tips, right? But then after I'd work 3-4 hours, if another employee came in that was an actual employee, they wouldn't clear the tip jar. I would have to share my tips with them. And man, that feeling of just not being valued at all really hit me pretty hard.
It reminds me of integrity, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Integrity of doing the right thing, not taking advantage of the 14-year-old employee.
I know. All right. And I'll never know the answer to this, but sometimes I think back and I'm like, was the person who run and owned that business, was he doing it as a favor to me, or was he doing it because it was cheap labor? I'll never know the answer to that. But if you fast forward a couple of years, I was able to get a legal job working to CVS. So shout out to CVS. Thank you for hiring this kid that was kind of lost. But one of the assistant managers there was engaged to and eventually married a police officer, also not the same guy. And he came in, and his name was Bobby Bryce. He made me feel valued. He made me feel seen. He treated me not like a teenage idiot punk kid, which is what I was, but as an actual person, as an actual human being, and it really made me feel valued. So that was a big turning point in my life to kind of go, oh, I really need to decide to do something with my life and make something of myself that's beyond just, blowing off school and everything else. So yeah, that meeting him and that experience with him would be that impact.
What did that cause immediately after realization of that experience in your life?
I think, that was the turning point for me to go, I have to think beyond today. And by the way, I'm not saying that everybody needs to think that way, right? We all have different experiences and different thoughts and different personalities. But for me, it was really, I need to go beyond what I'm doing right now in the now. And I need to plan my future because nobody else is planning it for me.
When you talk about planning your future, is this at 16, 17, 18 that you're having these internal conversations?
Yes, because it's a long story, but got kicked out of a couple schools, and schools weren't wanting me or having me or anything like that, and there was just something along all of those things connecting together where I was like, I really need to. Nobody's going to look after me after I get out of high school. If I get out of high school, I need to do something about this myself.
And what would you share with the audience in that moment you were doing, or that you've derived or pulled from that you may even do today when it comes to planning or looking to the future in your life or business?
I think it's more of an everyday sort of way of life. So by nature now, I am a planner. I'm talking, I know what I'm doing next March, a year from now sort of thing. So people are going to call me crazy, right? But on Sunday nights, I'll review my calendar for the upcoming week to see what I've got going on. Every weeknight, I'll look at my calendar, see what I'm doing the next day, right? So all of that, I think, is just kind of an overarching, it kind of falls under that umbrella of I need to look ahead. I'm constantly looking ahead, and I think my reach always exceeds my grasp when I do that.
How has that served you most in your life or your career or your path up into this date? Planning ahead, doing those strategic things to know what's coming tomorrow, to know what's coming next month, to know what's coming next March.
Right. It's well, number one, I guess we'll see how it plays out, right? Life is still going, but it got me out of high school for starters, and it got me through college, and it really helps with helping me explain to other people and clients why taking certain actions and thinking beyond what those actions do, how they're going to impact long term.
Impact.
I had to throw it in there.
I love that word. A lot of people think about the impact that they can make while they're making it or in the moment. And I think one of the things that I've learned over time is if you don't foresee into the future of how you want to make that impact, are you really going to live up to the highest level and the highest capacity that you can bring to this earth by planning, by foreseeing into the future, by strategically placing certain people in your life, certain things in your life, right? Not to get, but yet to give. Are you someone that believes in giving over gaining, and do you plan some of that stuff out in your life?
Yeah, absolutely, and thanks for asking that. I'm definitely, I consider myself a giver. There is some research, Adam Grant did some research on different types of people, givers and takers, if you will. I try to be a giver. Part of that is I do a lot of work with Special Olympics and Special Olympics Tennessee specifically, and because you do get to see that long-term success once you put in that work.
What type of work specifically are you doing with the Special Olympics?
So for Special Olympics, I actually am a board member. So aside from sitting in board meetings, I will volunteer myself, my own time. I will take my children to volunteer with me and kind of show them what that impact is on volunteering with Special Olympics athletes, and everything from handing out medals after they win an event, to standing on the sidelines and cheering them on, to standing on the on a corner and waving people by to direct them, whatever it takes to just kind of help those activities go on.
Why did you choose the Special Olympics to donate your time, your energy, and commitments?
That's a great question. It actually comes up a lot with a lot of people involved in Special Olympics, because so often we have people who are involved with it know or are relatives with somebody that has an intellectual disability. I do not. I don't have anybody in my family like that. So in a certain regard, I feel like it kind of chose me. But long story, but I attended an international conference with Special Olympics and met a lot of people from all over the globe. And prior to that, I really didn't know the impact that it had on these people's lives, and the how it was started by Eunice Kennedy Shriver. And if you think back to, it wasn't too long ago, we would put people with intellectual disabilities in basically in homes and lock the door and throw away the key to a certain extent, right? So it's being able to provide these athletic events. And by the way, they're year round. Sometimes people just, there's a misconception that it's, every 4 years or something like that. But the Special Olympics provides year round activities, everything from basketball to flag football to weightlifting and tennis, and the list goes on, right? But providing those year round activities for people with intellectual disabilities.
With your work around leadership, organizational psychology, working with C-suites, working with their teams, is this something that you see as important in the corporate world, to give first and not become one of those takers? And do you do work around that with some of the trainings and coaching and consulting that you provide today?
I bring it up sometimes, but not from a selfish standpoint. I mean, I would love to see everybody all over the world get involved in donating some time, right? But from the business standpoint, not everybody kind of, and you have a lot of insight here. Some people fail to realize that although let's say you're the boss, you're the CEO, right? Or you're in C-suite or somewhere higher up there. Maybe you don't like to donate your time. Maybe you are not that person, but you know what? A lot of your employees are, and they want to see that. So there's something called corporate social responsibility, and that CSR is what some people will actually engage with their organizations for and because of. They're like, I work here because it's a great organization, because we do work with Habitat for Humanity or whatever. Like, they love that part of their job. So it's not even just their job that they're part of. It's like, I'm with this company because we're doing volunteer work for this.
Corporate social responsibility.
Yep.
I love it. I love it. And I've witnessed it. I've heard it. I've had employees when I was in corporate, not working for myself. I've also attracted independent contractors to work in my company today because of some of the things that we do. I was just at Nashville Food Project last week. I've got some stuff coming up that I'm looking at doing. And it's funny because in my experience, although I am doing that for the cause to help people, I'm gaining.
Right.
Because it resonates in my heart and my soul, and I believe that it's the right thing to do. And funny enough, right, I've got a conference coming up, and I'm donating my time, and there's 8 of us, and I'm just talking in regular conversation. They're like, what are you doing? And what are you up to? And what's going on in April? My April's busy, and all these conversations. And then I just looked last night, and 2 of the people bought tickets to my conference. And it was an invitation. It wasn't a sale. It wasn't a sales pitch. I wasn't bragging. I wasn't boasting. And I say this humbly.
Yeah.
Maybe it came off, to each his own, but that was not my intention in that moment. So when I think about these opportunities to attract like with like, and to do the things that I believe in and how I want to navigate business and life, and then I see on the back end financially that people have purchased tickets and they're helping my business grow. And then I get to give back in the conference, right? Because, it's called 7 Minutes of Impact, right? It's a conference with 7 speakers, 7 minutes. So it's really full circle in a lot of ways. And I think sometimes we don't realize in the life that we live that's so busy, that's so complex, where so many things are going on and we need, to hit this budget number and bring in this revenue and hire these amount of people and really crush these survey scores, that if we do dedicate some time or we do utilize corporate social responsibility to attract the people that have the characteristics or the traits that we want in our organization, great things can happen and we can gain, we can benefit. And funny enough, I think it comes down to doing what you want to do to make a positive impact in the world will return positive impact to you in your business somehow, some way, in your life, in your heart, in your soul. Have you ever experienced some of that? Have you ever worked with organizations that have kind of seen and felt very similar to some of those experiences?
Absolutely, and I have to say, that was so well put. That was so eloquent. I might have to bring you in when I'm giving some CSR speeches, to some in C-suite and say, listen to my guy Jim here for just a second on why you should do that. All right, or let me play you this podcast here and listen to this snippet. But there are plenty of times where those organizations are doing it and they can kind of see it themselves, right? And there are some great ones that, even just, I'll go back to Special Olympics, they donate just a ton of money to help that organization, either sponsor events, like we just did something called the Music City Blitz, where we brought in athletes from 9 different states, and we hope to grow it again next year, to play flag football at Nissan Stadium, like on the field at Nissan Stadium, and that, that couldn't be done without the help of some corporate sponsors.
I love it, man. I love it. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to community. It comes down to, building this proximity of alignment that helps the people that need it most in the moment that they need it most. Mm-hmm. And I think it filters back to human integrity, right? We're always being questioned. We're always being pulled and pushed in a different ways, shapes, and forms. And I think if you have that foundational integrity, it really allows you to step in and assist and help someone in the exact moment they need it, right? And there's these corporate companies, and I've been involved in them. I've done some of this stuff. I'm not perfect, where you say one thing, you put the core values up on the wall, you got this banging ass, vision statement and mission statement, right? And an employee right in front of you needs you to love on them in that exact moment, and you miss it. Mm-hmm. And everybody thinks that you need to be at 24/7, 365 for every employee, every associate, but I don't believe that. I think you need to show up in the moment that they need it most. And I think once you hold that level of integrity in those moments, it's the impact is existential. It filters, it blows up, it covers so many and touches so many people in the organization, because that person is now your biggest fan. That person is going to tell other people. That person is posting on their LinkedIn, and you didn't even ask them to talk about your company. And then we think about top talent, we think about attraction, and we've got all these concepts of silent quitting and all these things that are occurring, and I wonder why. And I think it comes back to that commitment that was made on your offer letter, in your interview, about how they run their culture, how they run their company. Mm-hmm. And you're faced and you need it most in that moment, and you're wishing and wanting, and you're like, this is happening. These guys or gals are great. This is perfect. This is awesome. and you get let down because it's not what's in the operational manual. It's not the core value written on the boardroom wall. It's about what's occurring in the moment that that person needs it most. Tell me a little bit about your experience with that, and what you've seen in companies that you've worked with or trained, or is that something that comes up that you see kind of this mirage of culture, this mirage of we've done all the things, we've got all the documents, and they're kind of missing it? It's kind of going over their head.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's some fascinating research behind all of this, and you really hit the nail on the head with all of it. And I'll go back to one of the first statements that you said there, which was that you're not perfect. And don't worry, nobody is. But we're all perfect in our own way, right? So all right. So culture eats policy for breakfast, right? I mean, every single time. It doesn't matter what you have written on the wall. It doesn't matter what's in your 1,500-page department manual, that if you have a crappy culture, that is going to actually dictate how your organization is run. So there are a lot of fascinating surveys out there, but so I'll generalize. If you ask C-suite and CEOs how your company culture is, they're like, it's great. Everything here is great, right? And then you go down a level and you're like, how's the culture here? And they're like, it's all right. It's pretty good. And you go down, one more. It's like, how's the culture here? Oh, we're making it. All right, and you go down to the IC level, and they're like, how's the culture? And they're like, I'm looking for another job. This place is terrible. So there's a lot of reasons for that. You touched on a lot of things. Being authentic and showing integrity to somebody is really going to give them that opportunity to kind of see who you are and how you operate, right? But that culture piece. Sorry, this is kind of like a spider web, right? There's a lot of things that are attached, and one thing will kind of adjust to another one, right? But the culture piece is interesting because once you start talking about things like burnout and what causes it and why, and is it with your employees? Well, no, not my employees. My employees are great. They're happy here, right? Or I'll talk with some CEOs. They don't want to know, and that's called the ostrich effect, right? You're sticking your head in the sand, you're not looking around. Called the ostrich effect in psychology. I don't even want to, nope, we're good. You're like, well, your survey says otherwise. You're like, they don't know what they're doing on that survey. That was, improperly done. So a lot of things that impact all that.
It's crazy to me to think about what you just said. It's crazy to me to attach your personal brand to an organization where you're getting direct feedback and you don't want to fix it. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you have to address it, right? As a leader, conflict is inevitable. Nothing is going to just smoothly and consistently flow in this upper trajectory where it's perfection and you're getting closer and closer and it's just right? Like, that's not real. And if it was, would life be so interesting?
Well, no, it wouldn't be. No, you're absolutely right. And there are a lot of different reasons for it, right? Commitment and consistency, right? We say there's an old school, that psychology of commitment and consistency. There's that old school thought of like, I can't admit that I've done anything wrong. I'm the infallible leader, right? And a lot of people still cling to that. So that's one thing that's wrong with it, right? I can't ever admit a mistake, because if I do, my people will see that I'm weak, or et cetera, and it's silliness. When research shows us that if you show that vulnerability, that you're going to come off as more real, and your people are going to like you more, they're going to be more productive, right? And there's a domino effect to that as well. So, yeah, that whole infallible leader thing is a big myth that I wish we could dispel.
How do you break through with leaders and C-suites? How do you get them to see the whole picture? How do you work with them closely to really crack the code, to break through on the other side, to create that positive impact, which in turn, I would assume, creates effectiveness, efficiency, revenue gain, growth? How do you do that in your work today?
Right, so revenue gain is one of the big things that I have to show them first, right? Because if it doesn't go to that bottom line and it's not tangible.
You're an expense, Pete. You're just an expense. Everything is perfect, Pete. We don't need this.
Yeah. So I have to show them that first, right? Because so we there are a lot of different ways we can go about doing it, and I'm going to put this in two general buckets here. Obviously, there's more to it than this, but you've got leaders that are like, hey, help me improve. I know there's always room for improvement, right? Almost imposter syndrome type things where you're like, I need help. I'm not good at what I do. And then you've got the ones that are like, perfect, just the way I am, right? So breaking through to them are going to be the more challenging ones. And so it's everything from showing the bottom line, like, hey, let's look at your employee retention rates. What's your turnover? And let's talk about why, because there's a lot of things that we can probably do differently here. And sorry, my brain's kind of going in a couple different directions here with employee turnover. But so,
do you see, real quick, sorry to cut you off, but do you see a majority of organizations do exit interviews in your work?
Some do. Most of the bigger ones do. Yeah, for sure. On the smaller ones, yeah, they'll do them. Do any of them do them really well? Probably not. So really what I propose and what I teach organizations to do is what we call stay interviews. Why are you here? Before you leave. Get to them before they get to the door, right? And because at that point, they also don't care with the exit interview, right? If they're out of here, they're finding a different job, and especially if they're disgruntled, you're like, tell me about your experience here at the company. And they're like, right? They don't care. Yeah. They don't care what you think or what you do. They're on to their next thing. And I don't blame them for that. But I
think, too, there's two types of people in an exit interview. There's people that don't tell the truth because they just don't care enough of the effectiveness of the truth. And then there's people who are just going to let it rip and put too much gas on the fire because they're angry or disgruntled. Right. You see kind of those two camps?
Absolutely. But often what people will do is before their exit interview, they'll ask some friends and they'll go, hey, should I tell them how I feel? And then somebody will inevitably go, you don't want to burn a bridge, right? They might call that your employee for a reference, or your employer for a reference. They might ask, how you were as an employee. So you don't want to go in there too much, like just all spit and fire, right? So there's inevitably, I think there's a lot of just kind of reserved, So stay interviews, right? Let's say you're an employee and you're perceived to be a happy employee. I can come to you and go, tell me about why you're here. What keeps you here? Is it pay? Is it benefits? Is it the work environment? Is it the flexibility that you have? Is it because we let you go home early on Fridays? Or, what is it, right? And kind of talk about why you're here and take that strengths-based approach to what is good about this company. Don't work it on your own assumptions, right? Because when you're C-suite, you think everything's great. Everything's perfect up here, right? Go talk with those people, and I'll do like anonymous stay interviews, right? Because you also want to get the bad out of there also. What might cause you to leave?
Ooh.
So,
dude, I never thought about
you want to get to
that
all this
question.
You want to get to all this before your employee leaves the company because it costs you money when they leave. You have to rehire and retrain and go through a hiring process, and that costs time just to do that. And time costs money, right? So there's a huge effect when you have employees just leaving. So that's one of the first things that we can start with is like turnover rates.
It's very interesting to me because when I think about someone leaving that may have a team around them, may be a culture leader, may have deep human connection, deep relationships with other people, interdepartmental, direct line down, vertical up. I also think about the emotional change within the proximity of people they're connected with. So like when I think about it, obviously it's money, right? Turnover, hiring costs, platforms, time, people have to interview, you probably don't want to just hire the first person, even if you love them. And I always say this, usually the first person I interview ends up being someone I hire, but I always never want to just jump right in, right? You want to kind of see what's out in the pool for that specific demographic that you're looking for or that specific location, whether you have, multiple different offices around the U.S., world, whatever. But I think about the emotional distress that occurs, the anxiety of the person that now knows that they don't have a direct boss, or that they have to report 2 levels up now because there's a gap or a hole, or the person that they eat lunch with every Friday, or the person that puts on gangster rap in the office on Thursdays and they just attract to them and have a quick 2-minute conversation around something outside of work, right? And I think about it in a cultural perspective. I also thinking about it in a belonging perspective. Mm-hmm. When you're around people that welcome you and invite you in and allow you to feel a sense of belonging, and then you bring in someone who's new, someone who has to prove themselves, someone that comes in and I've learned this the hard way, and I've also done it really well, but wants to come in and make change to show that they were the right hire, to show that they're immediately effective, to show that it's a safe space in the first 90 days, the first quarter of them being in the office, being in the atmosphere. I think about all those things that start and can cause deflation of culture, deflation of belonging. And I think sometimes we can't quantify that from a negative impact. We can't quantify someone's capacity to bring a positive impact to the workspace. And because it's not tied to a dollar, we don't understand the input effectiveness and efficiency that it can be tied to. Do you agree with that? Have you seen this? Are you like, Jim, you're absolutely fucking nuts? Like, what's your take on this?
Do I agree with that? I feel like we should make you an honorary organizational psychologist.
Dude, I fucked this up so many times in my corporate career that I've just had to learn the hard way, man.
Gosh, there's so many things to say here, but that speaks to the bigger reason of why we should share mistakes, right? You said you fucked things up, right? You learn from those mistakes, right? Organizations need to do that as a whole instead of that infallible leader that I was talking about, right? And everything's perfect and you don't acknowledge mistakes. No, you need to do the opposite. You go, hey, I made this mistake. Here's how we can learn from it and let's move on, right? But yeah, you talked also about, that person leaving, there's that gap, right? That skip boss, whatever. There's something called turnover contagion, right? For whatever reason, if somebody quits, leaves, that can spark other people to go, you know what? Jim's out, I'm out too. Let's get out of here, right? And so there's a domino effect, and quantifying all of that is really difficult. What we can do is we can kind of generalize and ask companies and do surveys and how much did you lose over, and that sort of thing. So, but overall, yeah, to put a specific number on it, it's very difficult.
Have you ever seen an exit takeover where multiple people walked out the door afterwards?
Trying to think. I've heard of some, but I've never witnessed it myself.
I've seen it be in the 2 to 3 number. I've never seen it like whole team leave, but I've read about it, and I've obviously observed different companies where 3 of the C-suite leave, the director of HR leaves, and then all of a sudden they're started their own company, right? In direct competition.
Right.
But I was always curious about, as I've read about that, like at what level of depth was everybody unhappy? And it only takes that one domino, like you said, before it all falls. And I think the level of risk to maybe just pay someone what they deserve, $10,000 more a year, $15,000 more a year, and I start to think about, okay, maybe it's the CEO or the COO or the founder, and at what level, I wonder, does ego play into some of those decisions? What's your thoughts on that?
Again, I'm gonna look into honorary org psychologists, because again, you're hitting ego is a huge thing for me because it ruins people, and part of that, I think that's a piece of that infallible leader. But yeah, ego is just it's part ostrich effect, like we talked about, right? I don't even need to look around. I know everything is good, and yeah, that is going to, when you have that large ego and you're basically signaling to your employees that you're not there for them because you think too highly of yourselves anyway, that you don't really need their input.
You don't need their input. That fallible leader, do you think it's money derived to where they've been successful, they're crushing it, revenue's good, projections look good, maybe they're on their way to an exit in the next year or two? Where do you think that ego derives from in a lot of those situations or scenarios?
I would say it's probably a combination of history and what they've experienced, as well as their own biases and future projections for themselves.
When you say future projections, is that money? Is that kind of setting, like jumping on the horse and off in the wind type of thing? Like, what do you mean by that?
Take your pick. It could be. I would say it'd be depend on the individual.
Makes sense. Yeah. It's so funny. We live in this world of a lot of similarity in a lot of ways, especially at the C-suite of what I've seen. And, I think individuality plays such an important role at that level, right? You see some people running the same play at the same 2-minute mark in the fourth quarter, and some absolutely crush it and some absolutely throw the ball through the stands and it's not even close to the end zone. Do you think that in those moments of high pressure, fourth quarter, last 2 minutes, need to score a touchdown to win the game in the Super Bowl, do you think that comes down to the plan and the play, or do you think it comes down to the leader and the individual running it and quarterbacking it?
Well, let me just take a sidestep and say that you're speaking my language with football, because I love football. This is my team right here. I know
I
you're
knew
from the
you were.
Boston
I knew you were, man.
So all that being said, I'd say it's a little column A, a little column B, right? You need those things in place. You need those policies, procedures. You need to know what it means to act under pressure. What are you going to do if there's bad news, right? There's a book by an author named Helio Garcia, and it's called The Power of Communication. And in it, he gives a rule of thumb for delivering bad news. Tell it all, tell it fast, tell them what you're doing about it, tell them when it's over, get back to work, right? And
Let's go, dude. Come on.
So tell it all means don't hide anything, right? Tell everything. Tell it fast. In other words, tell it right away. Don't delay it, right? Tell them what you're doing about it. And so here's how we're fixing this problem. Tell them when it's over, get back to work. So
I've always been a fan of good news travels fast, bad news travels faster. Right? Because if you don't get ahead of it, there's a lot of, naturally our brain and mind want to fill the gap, right? So if something goes sideways and you're not communicating the truth in an honest way and you're doing it quickly, then your associates, your employees, your executives, wherever level you are in the organization, we start to fill in the gaps. And sadly enough, we start to fill it in, I think, more negative in a lot of ways than what the truth really lies and looks like. So for me, I've just experienced that in so many ways and I've done it, dude. I'm like, oh, that must be because of this and this happened and this. And then it's just like, oh no, they're moving to Seattle from Boston, to be closer to their family. And it's like, oh, okay. I thought, Billy told him to fuck himself and, because I've heard him say that before to someone and right. And we start to fill in these gaps.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you are 100% right. So, no, you're again, honorary org psychologist here. No, people do fill in gaps. If you don't put that narrative out there, they are going to create their own narrative on what they're thinking or what they're perceiving. So, for sure, yeah.
As we wrap up, the last question I have for you, Pete, and thank you for just going back and forth, man. I really enjoyed this conversation. It's great to talk to high-level thinkers who are helping leaders in the next generation of leaders get to the level that we all want to be at, the companies we all want to work at. How important to you is developing these leaders today to enhance the future leaders of our world?
Well, I appreciate you calling me a high-level thinker. That's very nice of you. I'm going to take a compliment home and I'm going to tell my wife. She might not agree, but and nor will my kids. But that's all right. We've got it on tape now, right? It'll come out pretty soon.
It's recorded, man. It's official.
Yeah, it is so important because I ultimately really do this because I care. I don't want to see miserable people at work. I like people, right? That's why I volunteer my time with Special Olympics. I do some other volunteer stuff too. I'm not even going to get into it, right? But I care for people, and I've never met somebody yet, and you might correct me if I'm wrong, that hasn't worked for somebody that didn't make their life harder than it needed to be, okay? And we don't need to be that way at work. You don't have to be miserable at work. You can go to work and enjoy your job and whistle and smile and get results from what you do. So yeah, the future leaders are so important because it's a small world, we're all in this together. So we really need to work together on that leadership piece so that we treat each other right.
Agree, man. 100%. I said that was my last question, but I got one more for you. How do you measure the culture in a company? Is that talking to the entry-level employees? Is that an assessment? Is that a survey? Is that spending deep time and extracting it out of managerial level, higher, director level? Like, when I think about culture, I think there's so many ways to do it. How do you advise really getting to the freaking truth about it?
Right. So first we have to define culture, and I've got my own tool that I use that we interview people with, and it's a survey. But number one, probably the most important part of that is driving home and getting people to understand that it is anonymous. Like, it is for real anonymous. I know that your company hired me. I know that your boss hired me. I can't see what you put in there. I literally cannot see the answers that you give. I aggregate the data, and we look at the data afterwards. It can be done from an entire company perspective. If you've got 25 people in your company, sure, we can do that and kind of look at how it is overall. If you've got 50,000 people in your company, we can do that too, but it's not really going to tell us much. But so we can break it down by level, where we can do C-suite and VPs and ICs and all that stuff. We can break it down by team. We can break it down by task, right? So it might not necessarily be the same thing as team, but basically, long story short, I use an instrument to do that. That way, I'm not bringing in my own biases, my own interview biases when I'm assessing your culture.
How do you get the message across? Like, is that you telling people, sitting down face to face and just leveraging the connection and so to build comfort and safety and honesty? Are you writing like very well-spoken emails? Like, how do you actually get someone to believe you in those surveys and in those conversations?
Well, I don't know who's believed me yet. So email is part of it, and video message is part of it too, right? Because if there's a lot of employees, I can't just have a face-to-face with all of them. But part of that video message is I try and explain to people where, look, this is my business. Hesion is my business, and it's my name, and it's my integrity. I'm not going to do anything that's going to ruin that on my own name, because you might think that I'm in cahoots with your boss to find out, did Jim write this about me or something about that. No, it's completely anonymous. The way the program is set up, I can't look at it even if I wanted to.
I love how you put your name on it. I think that is one of the most powerful things you can do. And I've done this, like when I first threw my big, large conference and invested all my money, and I was like, I'm putting my family name on this conference. If you want your money back, if you weren't served, if the marketing didn't actually equate to the depth of the speakers, the conversations, the network that I brought in here, I want to know, because one, it's not done on purpose, and two, I need that feedback so I can get better, because this is my family name. Right. And at that time, I just had my first daughter. I just got married. My wife obviously, took my last name. We transitioned her chiropractic company into Morris Family Chiropractic, right? So this Morris name it was depth. It was deep. We just started discussing my son, being a junior, James William Morris Jr., right? So like I was having these just really vulnerable conversations, but a conversation of honesty to where it was like, listen, I'm going to call every person that buys a ticket, all 400 people that buy a ticket. I'm going to call you and ask you a set of questions to ensure that this is the right conference to solve your problems. And not everybody picked up the phone, and not everybody I could have a conversation with, but I give back one ticket. Small fraction of the number of people that came, but it had to align. It wasn't a money grab for me. And I think what you're saying is so powerful, because it is your business. It is your personal brand tied to your company brand. It is the only thing that you have and can protect is your name, your foundation of who you are.